right. So everybody, someone going to say something? Who's the host here? Aren't you going to talk? Welcome
I
everybody.
am. Hello, Venerable. How are you?
Oh, Charlie, I'm very well. Happy to be here. So talk to
I,
me.
I want to thank you for joining us, and we'd like to thank you from Tupten Norbaline. We're so grateful to have you here, and we can't wait to see you next month. And
Yes.
yes, there's a lot going on in the background.
Okay. So what would you like me to talk about? Everybody.
We can we can ask for questions.
Yeah, I think so. So we think we're here together for this hour or so. And we're going to talk about who knows what. So we can take some tools away to develop our potential to be of benefit to other people on this planet. So think like that. And then, yeah, why not? Ask me some questions. Good start. Get it ball rolling. Any burning questions? Anybody? Anything on your mind? And we're guaranteed to have things on our mind. So someone ask me. Good on you, Lorraine. You talk to me.
Thank you, Venerable. I'm so glad that you're here today. I've been having a bit of a struggle lately. I lost my car to a fire, which was the closest thing I've had to having my own home, and it's affected me very deeply on a lot of levels I didn't know existed. And
What did you
I'm
say? Lost your what?
my car.
What do you mean you lost it?
It went up in flames while I
Oh
was.
my goodness, your car died. Wow, amazing. So then go on. So tell us why was it such a suffering for you, Lorraine?
Well, first of all, it's the closest thing I've had to having my own home. I've been kind of nomadic for the last 6 years
Oh,
and
I see. So you've been living in your car.
not living in it. I've had to live with my parents, but it was the closest thing I had that was
Oh,
mine.
okay. So that's intense. Yeah. So tell us the problem then. What have you been? How would you describe the problem?
Well, mentally and emotionally, I've seems like I've reverted in mentally to going back to looking for a sign. Like I was kind of raised in the kind of mystical spirituality of Christianity, where you're always looking for that outer voice to tell you what to do, because I was felt so lost. And
Mhm.
it seems to, I think that's really the wrong thing. It's
Uh-huh.
just it feels like it's set me back because now I just feel lost, but I feel like I'm looking in the wrong places for answers of how to function. I'm just so out
I
of.
so then, I mean, if you, so okay, so here we're trying to talk Buddhist ideas, aren't we? So you seem to like the Buddhist ideas, you turn up for these things. So what that means is also, what's the classic Buddhist one here? The very first teaching is impermanence. I mean, so in other words, the Buddha's approach is he tells us these different things. He says everything exists according to the karmic rules, everything is the mind, everything is impermanent. And why he's telling us all that, and this is the point in Buddhism, is because we think the opposite. In other words, we suffer because we have a deep assumption, everybody has it, in our mind that the things we have, including our body and our life and our family and our beloveds and our car and our house and our cat, whatever it might be, we have a deep, deep assumption that it's permanent, that it will last. So the extent to which we have that assumption equals the extent of our suffering. I mean, right there, Lorraine, is a huge thing to contemplate. In other words, the way you talk to yourself is exactly like that. Oh my God, this is impermanence. Exactly right. Why am I suffering? I'm suffering because I assumed it wouldn't disappear. I assumed I'd always have my car. That's the exact reason you're suffering. I mean, is that approach make sense to you?
Yes, it did feel like the one stable thing that I had in my life.
Well,
So
clearly it's nothing is stable, including your
apparently
body,
not.
Lorraine. This is our fantasy. And then the other one to learn from it, you see, they're very linked. The primordial one is attachment. So, when we have something, especially if we don't have many other things, it could be that, not always, we cling to it. So we have it, we assume it will last because we want it to last because we have so much attachment. So that's also the tremendous reason we suffer. So, tick the boxes, Lorraine. You're suffering because you've got attachment, which cannot bear the thought of not having your car. And then because you're jumping on top of your car, the view of permanence, extra suffering on top of that. And then, so since that happened, I mean, when did it happen? Yesterday? A month ago?
March 12th. It's just a few weeks.
what is the problem you're trying to solve then? I mean, what do you need to do about this? Do you have to do something about it externally, get another car, or what's the story on that level?
I absolutely need a new car. I still have to get to work, and that's I'm not going to have enough to get a decent car. Like what I'm going to be getting back from insurance is will get me a car that's good for parts, and that's about
I
it. So
see, right,
I'm just
exactly.
kind of looking to the community for resources right now,
What do you
and
mean looking to the community? What do you mean by that?
I've just been asking around, trying to find if there's any cheap cars for sale that won't, leave me on the side of the road.
Sure, exactly. So you're managing all that. You're finding you're solving that problem.
I wouldn't say I'm solving it. I'm still struggling with that. So
Which,
I have gotten a
with
couple of
which
leads,
part? So which part are you struggling with? The looking for a new car or the sadness of the loss of the old car?
both. Sadness of the loss because it was I did have way too much of an emotional reaction to the vehicle. I'll have to say I've
No,
been
you
through a
don't. You
lot.
shouldn't say it like that. We're human beings. The point is to learn from it. The point is to have an analysis. In other words, if you have a problem, if you tried to grow a garden, but the tree never grows, you don't kind of think, oh, I'm a bad person, I didn't do it properly. You use analysis, you try to identify the problem, and then you try to solve it. I mean, this is what we're really trying to do with our spiritual practice as well. So the problem is you have attachment. The problem is you grasp at things as permanent. I mean, join the universe, Lorraine. This is the world, and these are why we suffer. So the learning is that. So then you learn from that, listen to your heart, be sad, but then think, wow, well, I won't, I'll learn from that and not make that mistake again. That's what progress is. That's what practice is. Meanwhile, deal with the drama of having to get a new boring old car and try to pick yourself up. I mean, is this not the approach that you're trying to do?
It is the approach I'm trying to do, but I
Right.
found that I've also been having trouble with the post-traumatic stress of it because I did barely escape the
Well, but I
vehicle.
mean, yeah, no, but the term we use, post-traumatic stress, that's just another word for undealt with problems, Lorraine. What you
I
meant was at the time it happened, and you also nearly, you nearly got hurt, your attachment got shocked, your ego grasping got shocked, and you suffered a bit. I mean, that's what post-stress PTSD is. It's we have these delusions. This is just the Buddha's analysis, Lorraine. You don't have to use it, but all we can do if we're trying to be Buddhist is do that. So you have attachment, including to yourself. You have an assumption the car's permanent. You have an assumption you are permanent. You have an assumption, of course, I'm not going to have an accident. You have an assumption your car won't burst into flames. You have an assumption you won't die. These are all the problems in our mind, but we only meet these problems when the problem happens. We just take them as a given. So that's why you're suffering. And so then that's what the practice is, darling. I'm just trying to give you the Buddhist analysis. And if we choose to, we can use that analysis of it and then learn from it and move forward. That's what practice is. You see my point?
Yes, I do. I'm also having the issue of now that I have been through that, I do kind of expect a car to burst into flames, which is not helping.
That's absurd. And equally, that's also just superstition. It might well happen. You could, but I mean, that's not the approach. That's just because, you put the wrong seed in the ground. Forevermore, you think, oh, I'm going to get a bad tree every time. That's just called superstition. That's not learning from the problem at all. Be more reasonable, be more practical. This is a very practical approach, Lorraine. This is life. What you're experiencing is life. And it's called having attachment, having aversion, having fears, grasping at things as permanent. This is the analysis of why we suffer, whether you just lost your whole house and $1 million or lost one small thing. This is the analysis, Christine, and that, sweetheart, and that's up to whether we want to use this analysis or not. All I can do is give you this one. It sounds very clinical, but in the end it is, deal with our heart and have your tears. But meanwhile, this is the analysis for the problem. And the problem isn't that your car burst into flames. The problem isn't that you nearly got killed. The problem is that you assumed you wouldn't burst into flames and you assumed you wouldn't get killed. They're the underlying problems in our mind. It's quite a sophisticated analysis because it's getting us to look into our mind. Do you see my point, sweetheart?
Yes, thank
And
you.
that's how we solve the problem. We don't, go to the other extreme. Well, every time I have to get a car now, it'll burst into flames and you just live in fear. That's just bizarre. Learn about impermanence, sweetheart, and learn about attachment, and pick yourself up and keep moving and develop your marvelous potential, to be a human being who's brave and courageous and content and fulfilled, so that you can be of benefit to others as well as yourself. That's the bottom line, honey. What do you think?
Very helpful.
Good, darling. Good, sweetheart. Thank you so much, Lorraine. Who else then? Yes.
Venerable,
Yes, darling.
Pam asks in chat, I'm in a mix of wanting my
Sorry,
neighbor
she
to
asked
like me.
what? I didn't hear what you said.
She
What?
says she's in a mix.
Okay.
She wants her neighbor to like her, but she offended him. And now she thought that she would apologize, but he doesn't seem to like her. So would you suggest she apologize or just leave everything alone?
It's a good point. It's, if she said straight away, the very first point was she wants her neighbor to like her. So if you're thinking that you want to apologize as a method for get him to like you, it probably won't work. But if you want to apologize, and I'm assuming you don't know. I mean, you say you offended him. Can you talk to me? Do you want to talk to me and answer my question, sweetheart? Or not? Or do you not want to come in and be visible?
Hi, I'm here.
Darling, did you offend him? Did he tell you you offended him, or you're thinking you offended him?
Can I tell you the story?
No, we don't need to know all the details, darling. Just keep it the essence of it. Did he tell you you offended him, or do you think you offended him? That's an important point.
He told my neighbour. He told my other neighbour.
Oh, he criticized you to your other neighbor and said you did something wrong. Well, okay.
Yeah.
So then, I mean, it's nice to want to be liked. We all want to be liked, darling. It's painful not to be liked. But if you want to be very sincere about it, I think it's very nice, but do it very nicely. Maybe buy a little gift, go to his front door, knock on the door and apologize sincerely. And I'm really sorry. I want to be a good neighbor, and then leave it like that and see if he picks up the ball. Do you understand? But do it very sincerely. I think it's a very good idea, darling.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Only I think if he sees my face, he might just automatically.
No, don't over exaggerate it, darling. I think if you do it very nicely, there's this lovely story. I remember years ago, some guy in Sydney, he told this story. A friend of mine, there was some kind of party, and this guy who's a Buddhist, he had his brand new BMW. And he noticed the door was scratched, and he fixed it, and then he noticed it was scratched again, and you discovered the old bloke next door had done it. So he thought, oh my God, what am I going to do? Well, so it was so interesting. So I remember he said to his friends at the party, what do you think I should do? So one of my friends there, George, who's a Buddhist, he said, I'll tell you what Lama Zopa would do. I mean, this guy, John, didn't do anything wrong as far as he could remember. Just this next door neighbor was convinced he must have done something wrong. So scratched his brand new BMW. So John thought that was a great idea. So he bought he knew the old guy liked golf. So he bought some really beautiful golf balls, and he went next door and he knocked on the door. And he offered this man the golf balls, and he apologized for whatever he'd done. And he hadn't done anything, in fact. And so he went back to the kitchen, was very happy, felt he'd done a good job. And the guy came in beaming from ear to ear with his golf balls unwrapped, and said, this is the nicest thing anyone has done. He said, everything's forgiven. So, give it a go, but be sincere and humble about it, but not kind of crawly and funny, but just genuinely apologize, or drop a little note, a handwritten note with a little gift in his letterbox or by his front door or something, and let him handle it. Let him do it. But I think
that's a good idea.
Much better, and very sweet, just very sweet. And I'm really apologize for anything I've done wrong, because you'll know your neighbor said something. And just see what happens, darling, and just take it one step at a time. Try not to exaggerate it, and just try and be natural and nice, and see where it goes.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Thank you, son.
Okay, darling. Good
I'm
one.
in Australia, by the way.
I can hear it. I can tell.
I'm in Queensland.
Good, darling. Thank you.
Thanks.
Good. Yes,
Bye.
hello, Ryan. Ryan, who is in Los Angeles, one end of the earth to other. No, the
Hello,
other,
Venerable.
it's the other side of the Pacific, isn't it? Los Angeles to Australia.
Yep.
Go on, Ryan. What's going on?
Thank you for being here, Venerable. You talk about you've never heard anyone complain about, oh, I'm just having so many positive thoughts.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
So obviously for most people, the negative thoughts flood in.
They seem to, don't
uncontrollably.
they?
They
They
seem
do
to
seem
be,
to. It's really true.
and it just is so annoying that the positive thoughts are not flooding in all the
That's
time.
right.
Is
Yes.
this just basically comes down to practice and progress in your practice that can
Yeah.
try and
That's it. Yeah,
turn
I
it
think
around?
I think the point is, and we take, the Buddhist view is whatever's in the mind, whatever pops up from it without being invited, it's because the habit is there. So this is what really this analysis is. Buddha's saying we've got these deep delusions in the mind, this strong sense of a concrete, separate me, which really is kind of profound. And then there's this strong attachment to get what that me wants. And then there's the fear and the aversion when it doesn't get what it wants. And these are pretty fundamental, even in nice people. They're very primordial. So primordial that we in our culture, our psychology, just think, well, it's just normal behavior. And it is. But they're very strong in us. Buddha would say they're very ancient. And so they're the ones chatting away in the back. We're always seeing the world in reference to this me. So then they come naturally, but what's interesting is because of that, then we tend not to think, well, what can I do? What's another alternative is we can't wait for the positive thoughts to come. We have to consciously say the positive thoughts. This sounds very curious, but a nice analogy for me is this. The default mode is, let's say you can't play piano. You put your hands on the piano and nothing comes except a big fat noise. So you don't just sit there waiting for good piano playing to manifest in your mind. You've got to decide to learn the theory, and you have to make an effort to put your hands on the piano and practice and practice and practice. Well, having good thoughts is the same thing, Brian. We tend just to sit there and wallow in the negative ones and then beat ourselves up and try to shut them all out. But we've got to decide to have positive thoughts. It almost sounds too corny, but the Buddhist view of the mind is, it's like literally they call it training. We've got to train our mind to have positive thoughts. Something unhappy happens, you interpret it in a positive way. You have a positive thought. If you hear yourself being angry, you counteract it with a positive thought. It doesn't bring immediate result, like playing the piano doesn't happen overnight, but it's called training. And we get it when it comes to playing the piano, but not when it comes to having positive thoughts. But it's literally that. Very powerful. But don't just wait for them to come. Bring them up consciously, and about ourselves especially. Do you understand?
Yes, thank you. Thank you very
And
much.
as we would say, practice makes perfect, but Tibetans have a lovely way to put it. They say nothing ever gets more difficult with practice. So we just every day it seems almost like Pollyanna to us to sit there and have a positive thought, because it doesn't bring an immediate benefit, but you've got to keep doing it, and eventually it becomes habit. Eventually, after years of working on it, your positive thoughts will arise naturally. That's exactly what we're trying to do, Do you understand?
Yes, thank
So
you.
keep doing it, Brian.
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay, Brad, talk to me.
Hi, Venerable.
Hello.
I think you may have just answered my question actually, but I'll just ask it anyway. I've
Good.
recently
Okay.
been out of a 4-year relationship, and I consider myself a pretty compassionate person, loving and all that kind of jazz. But I've realized after my relationship that I have a lot of anxieties, and those anxieties have made me kind of selfish
Yeah, I
that I
understand.
didn't
That's a
even
very interesting
realize.
point. Wow, Brad, that's interesting.
And so I'm trying to really build compassion for myself, which I struggle with. Like
Yep.
loving my own self is probably
Yep.
the hardest thing. Like I can love all my friends dearly and deeply and be
That's
there
it.
for everyone,
That's
but
it.
loving my own self is
Yep. That's the
is
irony of ego. That's the Buddhist analysis. It's so ironic that we are out. My mother used to say it to me, you're your own worst enemy. And it's really true. The irony of all these unhappy thoughts, whether about other people or about ourselves, they're really all self-inflicted. They're all thoughts. They're all negative thoughts. And that we are the first object of those negative thoughts. It's very fascinating, isn't it? But the interesting point is that they're why we suffer. So we shouldn't beat ourselves up for it. So it's this question of loving ourselves. Really, the method is quite, it seems almost like not, the method in Buddhism is to see that, just like you said, your own anxieties, which is really just is a way attachment works. Attachment, you see, is this constant worry that things will not happen the way we want them, the constant worry that bad things will happen, the constant worry that I won't get what I want, the constant worry that people won't like me. It's there. That's what anxiety is. And it's really is just a constant attachment. It's the voice of attachment. And so naturally it's self-centered. It's naturally self-centered. When we understand this without guilt, then we can learn to see that to love ourselves means to lessen the attachment, learn to be more content with who we are, sort of training ourselves to know I'm okay, I'm doing my best, I'm doing a good job. That's an immediate counteracting of I'm not enough, I'm no good, I can't do it. We have to kind of calm ourselves down and sort of quieten ourselves and go, it's okay, I'm a work in progress. It's one step at a time. It's a slow process like that, Brad. Do you understand me?
I do. And so
And having the
continuing
courage to
practice, I
own our
guess.
but having the courage to own our mistakes is also really important, but not to exaggerate them, you know. It's very good that you could see that your anxiety made you self-centered, because it's exactly the point. Of course it is, you know. So realize that, and know this is what causes you pain. But also for this relationship, you're not saying you are doing that, but don't take all the blame for it. Don't put it all against yourself. You're not doing that, are you?
That's what I've kind of did. Yeah, I've kind of chopped up, my anxieties and my depression has pretty much caused the downfall of the relationship.
You really believe that's the cause? Did the other person think that's the cause too, or is it you thinking that?
They didn't say that, but I guess what they said to me was they didn't see a future with me anymore, and so
But I think,
um,
but it's excuse me, Brad, it's sort of two people involved here. He's not a
yeah,
saint. He can't be a saint. You've got to see your problems, there's no question. But we've really got to have a very clear view of our own place, what we are, who we are, our problems, our good qualities, and the other person has to do that. And the commonest thing in a relationship is we tend to either you or in this case this other person is blaming you for their problems, you know, and that's really always so inappropriate, and that's very painful for you. But don't buy that into yourself. Don't do that to yourself. Be honest with yourself, but do not blame yourself because this relationship between two people didn't work. It's a very it's an interdependent scenario. It's two people, you know. So know your own mind, be aware of your own self and your own suffering and your own pain, and take care of that right now. That's your main job right now. And try and not get this other one about you're the fault for him as well. This is really not cool, Brad. What do you
thanks,
think?
Venerable. And I will say, the pain that I've been going through the past week, the one bright thing is I've been always kind of dabbling in Buddhism, but it's really
Yeah,
drawn me a lot closer to it.
good.
So I've often heard people say, when you hit rock bottom is when you
Yes.
really,
That's when we start to look for
and so I
methods.
think,
Exactly right. We need
yeah,
everything's going nicely or supposedly going nicely. We kind of rest on our laurels a bit and we don't look very deep. We just kind of take things for granted. It's often when we get a wake-up call, we can learn. So really take this opportunity to learn about yourself, Brad, and heal yourself and see your bad qualities, see your suffering, but you've got to remember your good qualities as well. You must remember those. They don't ever counteract your good ones. They might pollute them a bit, but they're still there. So get a good balanced picture of yourself and learn and know you can become stronger and more content and fulfilled. And that's the job of loving yourself. That's what it is, you know? Do you understand?
I do. Thanks very
Good,
much,
Brad.
Venerable.
Keep moving, sweetheart. Hello, Joey.
Thank you.
Talk to me, darling.
Hello, Venerable. Um, Although I absolutely love this methodology of the Tibetan Buddhism and studying with you, at the same time, I have noticed because of my awareness getting stronger and stronger, I have noticed how neurotic I am, and it's making me feel like I'm going cuckoo,
I
like
understand, darling.
I'm losing it.
I understand that. Yes.
Yeah,
I think we've
yeah,
discussed this before, you know. I think the point is, Joey, it's a variation on what Brad is experiencing. It's different. But
I,
when we're forced into ourself, which is what practice does bring, what we're doing is seeing what's already always been there. But we're now paying attention to it.
Mm.
So be brave. No, you're not worse than you think, but try to have the courage, and this is for Brad too, to delve inside, to see the stuff that's causing your pain, to own it, but not exaggerate, and to see it always in the context of your good qualities as well. Get a very balanced picture. I mean, you might feel like you're going cuckoo, but know that you're not. You understand? So be brave and go one step at a time and let it unfold in an organic way, Joey. Don't be fanatic.
All right. So I'm not going to go nuts and like lose it.
Well, I mean, it's why we need good friends, or even a good therapist, whoever's there to help us work out our problems. That's great. Do it on our own. That's fantastic. But just know it's okay. Our minds, be brave. Be happy to do the job.
Okay. Is listening to your podcast 4 hours a day too much in the beginning?
Well, I mean, I don't know. People, like, if it can be helpful. Otherwise, me shouting at you for 4 hours. I don't know how I can handle it. I don't know how you can handle it, but if you can, that's good enough.
Yeah, I slow the speed down.
Oh my God, good Lord.
It's still fast though.
Okay, Joe, I believe you. So, darling, if it's useful and it's food for thought, then you take it according to your capacity. Then have a little weep and a little sleep and wake up the next day and keep on moving.
Perfect. All right.
Good,
Much.
Joey. All right,
Yep.
darling. Okay, people, what else? What have I got to talk about and think about? I think something I want to talk about, something that I talk about, but it's good to remind ourselves repeatedly, There's the outside world, and then there's our mind. And the very way delusions work, the very way this neurotic I and the attachment and the fears work, like I said before, they're at, to Lorraine, they mostly, when things are going relatively well, you don't question things. We just relax and we just take everything for granted. We wake up, another day, the car's there, the boyfriend's there. We just plod along and we become very unconscious. And so then what happens is something changes and we have a complete panic attack. But then what happens is, this is the point I'm getting to now, particular point. There is always an event out there. The car collapsed, the boyfriend left, the rain comes, whatever it might be. There is an event out there, but then there's our mind interpreting it. And our problem is, especially when it's a painful thing, like, Lorraine losing her car, Brad losing his partner, it can be very dramatic for us. We then, then these stories start to take over the interpretation in our head, in our mind, and the deluded interpretation starts to take over. And then we paint a very terrible picture of that external event. And of course, the point is, we don't realize that we are painting a picture. This is the major point to see, and it's massive if we can get it. It's really huge if we can get it. This is the essence of what Buddha is saying. There's the outside world, and every second of the day, we know that things are happening. There's a person walking across the street. There's a car. There's the weather. It gets light. It gets dark. Winter comes. Trees grow. Flowers. There's a million things every day going on in front of us. But the way it exists for us is totally dependent upon the way we interpret it. But we don't think we're interpreting it. We say, that happened. We say, that person was mean to me. We say that. We say, a bad thing happened. We don't realize that our mind is playing this massive role in interpreting that event. There is an event. But so the thing to look at, like I said to Lorraine, like I said to Brad, like I said to the one in Australia, I didn't hear her name, is that there is an event happening. But what happens is we start, the crazy ego starts running rampant and writing an elaborate story. And then we can't tell facts from fiction. And this is why we go crazy, So in other words, what we say in the West is we have all these projections about somebody, you did this and you did that and you said this and it is this and it is that. And we are convinced that our interpretation is an assessment of the facts, and it's absolutely often not. And that's the part to look at. It's very, very hard to do it. Like just now, a friend of mine has gone to work in a Buddhist center, and it's not very happy there, and different people fighting or whatever things are going on. So it's very, and we have an interpretation of it. Everybody in the world has an interpretation. Within 3 seconds of reading the newspaper, watching the television, hearing about something, we have an interpretation. And we always assume that our interpretation is an accurate depiction of the facts. And this is the point, that it's not. It's distorted by our attachment, by our aversion, by our arrogance, by our low self-esteem, by our depression. Whatever's going on in our mind colors the event, but we don't realize that. And once we start to realize that, then I swear to you, we are really practicing Dharma. We are really practicing knowing our mind and realizing, that things don't exist the way they appear. As Lama Zopa says, the way the outside world appears back to us is according to what's in our mind. So if your mind's full of anger, let's say, then the outside event, the person will appear so ugly to you, and you will believe 100% they are that, So we've got to factor in our mind. It sounds almost too obvious, but as Lama Zopa says, and it's very shocking to say it, but you analyze it, it's true. The vast majority of human beings on the planet have no idea that what goes on in their mind plays any role at all in their lives, meaning that the outside world is fixed, set in stone, and however it appears to me has got nothing to do with my mind, and it is an objective reality. That's how we live our lives, and no wonder we all have wars and kill each other and everybody else, So our mind is the main player. Our mind is the main interpreter, It's huge. But we tend, so when we all do the same. I mean, Lorraine talked about her trauma. She talked about the car, the thing she's lost, Well, she talked about the external event. Brad mentioned, he talked about his mind, but we talk about the event that seems to trigger the mind. So the practice we have to do is learn to look into the mind. And that's the part that's hard. And as as we just said before, you think you're going crazy sometimes. So it's not an easy job, but it's a very powerful job to do. And this is the work that we have to do. It's very, very intense. Hello, Roxy. Talk to me.
Hi, Venerable. I saw something yesterday that I would love just your input on how to respond if we see something like this. I saw a bicyclist who had been hit by a car, and it looked like was probably not fine. There were people helping already, but that's just an intense thing to see. And how can we respond to that without spiraling in a negative way?
What do you mean, Roxy? What do you mean by in a negative way? What do you mean by that? Give me some options of how you might respond to seeing someone harmed, seeing someone suffer. Because basically you saw someone suffer, right? A bicyclist was harmed. So what do you mean by negative? What do you mean by that? Explain to me. What are your options of how you would respond to it? What are you talking about? Say it.
A few things arose for me. One was something I think helpful is just, oh, may they be well. That's deep suffering. May they be okay. But I think the thing that's not helpful is then thinking, or maybe it is helpful, thinking wow, that could be anybody, that could be me, that could be anyone. But then it starts going in a fear direction of oh my God, what if all the people that I love are gonna die in a bite.
Yeah, but you're doing exactly what Lorraine was doing. Just because her car burst into flame one time, you're assuming it's a reasonable response to start going. I mean, that's completely insanity. That's just emotional, hysterical nonsense. The learning is, that's what I said to her. It's called impermanence. It's called, if you want to take a Buddhist view, then you've got a half a dozen different responses. The very first one would be, this is the result of karma. Oh my God. And then you have compassion. The next result would be, this is impermanence. He was sitting on his bike. She was sitting on her bike, not expecting anything to happen. Just like Lorraine didn't expect her car to burst into flames. Just like Brad didn't expect the partner to give them up. Because we're grasping at permanence. So you apply impermanence and you learn from it. You apply karma, you learn from it. You apply compassion, you learn from it. That's what you do. I mean, Everything out there, like I just said, there's an event happening, and it's up to how you interpret it. So obviously the way to interpret it is an intelligent way, not a fearful way. What good is that, you know? So if you're trying to use the Buddha's teachings, which I know you are, that's how you'd use them. So it gives you a wake-up call. Every time you read about war, every time you read about suffering, it's exactly the same. Instead of fear or blame or denial, you learn from it, because you learn about impermanence, learn about compassion, learn about karma, and then just keep living your life and remember I'm trying to see life in a different way. That's what you're trying to do if you're using the Buddha's teachings. You see my point, Roxy?
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank
Good
you.
job. Good. Hello, Barbara. Talk to me.
Hi. So I don't know. I'm not sure I can articulate my question well
Give it a go, darling.
without sounding like I'm kind of way out there, but
Don't worry.
talking about the inside world and the outside world, and there's that polarity and the give and take. And when we I kind of tune into, or want to tune into, more like the rhythm of life, which seems like, if I'm reborn, there's like an overall rhythm to that, like I'm coming and going, and the sense of impermanence, that you're having something going and coming, and I'm having there seems to be like almost something musical, rhythmic about that. And considering that tomorrow is the solar eclipse, and I wanted to know what does Buddhism think of this? And I saw something that Lama Zopa said it was very auspicious, but at the same time, more Eastern kind of philosophical things said that this was like a very unstable period of yin and yang. And so those rhythms and those meanings of those rhythms are very interesting to me. I want to be able to respect the process of dependent origination, experience, things like that. But I don't know how to do that. So how can I be more in tune? How can I allow that outside world to come into me in a healthy and healing
I think
way?
what you're really saying is, instead of, what you're saying is, what you'd like to do is allow things to happen out there, instead of responding like a drama queen every minute, having a panic attack and freaking out and going up and down like a yo-yo. Basically, that's what attachment and aversion cause us to do, Barbara. We have attachment, which is this very default assumption that everything out there should be lovely, which means should be exactly what I want. So get that out of the way and allow the damn world to happen, and then just respond, as you're saying, the rhythms. But of course, if something terrible happens and a person falls off a bike in front of you, then you rush off and help them. If a flower grows, you delight in it. If there's a nice rainbow, you be happy about it. You allow things to happen instead of sticking our nose in, constantly interpreting. That's really what you're trying to say, I'd suggest. And that's giving up attachment and giving up aversion, which is a pretty intense job. So the one about the eclipse, I don't know enough about it, but I know that in the lunar calendar, these particular days are said to be very potent astrologically. And so, as Lama Zopa said, they'd be very good they're very good days for certain kinds of practices. There's a lot of intense energy on those days. What that means, quite, I don't understand. But I think it just means, instead of responding fearfully or neurotically to everything out there, just kind of relax and let things come and go. But don't be indifferent, because that can often sound very indifferent. You understand what I'm saying? Be human. You understand? What do you think?
Yeah, I want to be able to receive whatever's coming, good,
There you go.
bad.
That's right. That means less attachment and less fears. And so if you see a terrible thing, you have compassion, you do what you can. If you see a lovely thing, you delight in it and wish you could offer it to everybody, instead of grasping and pushing away, which is what attachment and aversion cause us to do.
Okay. How do I learn more about what the world is meaning? How do I make more meaning out of my
Understanding
experience?
karma. The Buddhist view is understanding karma, why things happen in the first place, how you even interpret what's happening, why good things happen, why bad things happen. Karma is the Buddha's fundamental law that underpins his entire view of the universe. That's the absolute basis of all the Buddha's teachings and practice. This law of karma, which is that every sentient being is continuously experiencing the fruit of their past action, and every sentient being is continuously sowing seeds that will produce our future. And this gets ever more subtle as a view. But that's Buddha's observation. There's no external thing out there. There's no creator. There's no kind of good or bad energy out there creating the universe. We are all experiencing the universe that we have created. It sounds pretty cosmic, but the law of karma is the most fundamental one to help us understand that.
Thank you very much for making sense out of my thoughts.
Good, Barbara,
Thank you.
darling. It's wonderful. Thank you so much. Hello. Yes, Lorraine. Yes.
Yes, a quick question about karma.
Yes.
I was kind of joking with my Sangha the other day about karma, and it came
That's right. Uh-huh.
because we were kind of, we was wondering where would I find out where that karma came from? Because car fire is kind of something that's intense.
It is.
What?
It's okay. Anything that happens in general, anything that you experience second by second, in other words, Lorraine, whatever arises in your life day to day, apart from your mind, but what arises in front of you, if you analyze it, in general, it's either a pleasing thing or it's an unpleasing thing. Would you agree with that? First of all.
Yes.
Good. Okay, first, every moment that something pleasing, a person smiles at you, the sun is warm and pleasant, the trees are looking nice, the food is delicious. Think of the simplest thing, everything that's pleasing, Christine, second by second, each of those is the fruit of one of your past virtuous actions, by definition. Every millisecond of what you experience that's called suffering, like an exploding car, that's the fruit of your negative karma. So one good approach to it is, wow, how fantastic. I've just purified a whole bunch of negative karma. Amazing. That's a really good attitude towards it. Of course, it's very intense, fire, flaming. It's like some heavy negative karma of harming in the past that's now manifesting in your car exploding and you amazingly getting free from it. So it's a negative karma that ripened that you've now just finished, So be happy it's gone. That's the way to interpret a Kunta karma, sweetheart. Could have been for 57 lives
Thank
ago.
you.
Do you understand?
That helps. Yes.
Good.
Thank you.
But be glad it's finished, Be glad it's finished. You just cleaned it up because you're trying to do your best to live your life well. You're purifying, you see. The dirt has to come out, as Lama Zopa says. The dirt has to come out. So that's a very positive attitude to when bad things happen, instead of having panic attacks and ego and turning it against ourselves, we kind of greet it and move forward from it, knowing that that's finished, that's over, Do you understand?
Yes, thank you.
Good, darling. Wonderful. Good, good, good. What else, people? 10 minutes to go. Our little discussion here, our tasty discussion. Anything there in there, Mary? Anything in there, Jela? Nothing in there?
I just wanted to let everybody know that you're going to be joining us April 6th, I'm sorry, May 6th in Santa Fe. 2 whole weeks of just nonstop, almost every single day classes. I don't know how they're going to keep up with you, to be honest, Venerable. You're amazing. But also, everybody can find you April 13th at the International Mahayana Institute, where you're going to be honoring your teacher, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, and his swift return. So thank you, and I'll let you guys go and ask questions.
Thank you, darling. Yeah. What's that April 13th thing? Where's that? Wait a minute, I'm a bit confused. What's that?
Oh, you have on your calendar. You have on your calendar that you're going.
Oh no, that's
to
the prayer we do. Yeah, that's the prayer we do every week, on every Saturday. That's right, chanting the names of Manjushri, which His Holiness Dalai Lama asked us to do to create the cause for Lama Zopa to return. Yeah, I lead that every Saturday, 9 a.m. New York time. That's right, just 30-minute practice. That's right, exactly. Okay, darling people, what else is there in our last 10 minutes? Come on. Questions? Everybody got questions? No? So I remember His Holiness the Dalai Lama one time, we get very, this business about how we see things, the way we interpret things. Inevitably, if they're through the lenses of our fears and our delusions and our attachment and our anger and our jealousy and our low self-esteem, but necessarily they're concrete. They're very fixed, very absolute. So then we hear about emptiness and we get very confused, that nothing exists as it appears. Things don't have an inherent concrete existence. We get very puzzled by that. And one time somebody asked His Holiness the Dalai Lama, how do you apply that philosophy to daily life? Emptiness. And he said it was very simple. He said, see things from another point of view. So that's so simple, it's embarrassing. It's telling us instantaneously, you know. Like, in other words, you know, Lorraine mentioned her car and she told about her responses to it. So what we discussed was different approaches to interpreting it. And then the latest one was the one of karma. So, I mean, that's exactly, so if you're sitting there, she didn't say this, but let's just say you're sitting there thinking, how dare my car burst into flames? I'm going to sue Ford. Why does this happen to me? This is not fair. Let's just say that's your response and wasn't Lorraine's. That's an interpretation, isn't it? And when it happens, we believe it's true. But then suddenly you hear another interpretation, which would be Buddha's, that this intense experience of a car bursting into flames is the fruit of some past negative action from 57 lifetimes ago of harming others. And now by the having of it, you just finish it. That's a completely, it's like you're describing two different things, but seeing something from another point of view. Immediately it tells you things aren't set in stone, as our mothers would tell us. So it's kind of profound, you know. Hello, Sasha. Talk to me.
Hello. Thank you for taking my question.
Okay.
I'm going through a divorce and
Oh, darling, I'm so
um,
sorry. I can't imagine the pain.
it's painful and he's very angry at me and I didn't know why. I've been still trying to figure it out and
Okay.
now I've gotten a little bit of insight today about it and he's reacting so angrily and I'm trying to not I'm trying to forgive. I'm trying to do the best I can, but of course
Uh-huh.
I'm up and down with my own emotions.
Of
But
course,
when you
exactly.
have somebody so angry at you,
Yes.
like seething anger,
Yes.
I'm like the more I try to bring it down and try to calm it down, everything I do seems to make it worse. And I guess since I don't have control of the situation, obviously, just my question is like, how do you deal with other people's anger when I'm beginning to I don't know what to do at this point.
I understand, darling. I really
as far
understand.
as
I understand. So first of all, just logistically, is it something that you have to see every day? Are you having constant interaction? Is it something you have to see every day, or is it just knowing it's there?
no, it's not every day, but we are going through mediation. So whenever
Okay.
there's topics coming up around all
I
the
see.
different issue
Okay.
files,
Okay.
etc.
This is helpful to know. Okay, this is helpful to know. Okay. So the Buddhist analysis of anger is that it's the response when our attachment doesn't get what it wants, which is very brutal sounding, but it's kind of profound, because the default view, this is Buddha's view, the default problem in everybody's mind, and it's multifaceted and it's really subtle, and is that we're constantly, attachment is this constant emotional hunger for everything to be nice. So when you're in a relationship, it's working overtime. You're hungrily wanting everything to be nice, especially the attachment for the other person to like you. That person's hungrily wanting you to like them. Each of you is wanting the other person to do the proper thing. Each of us is worried we're doing the wrong thing. We're all the time this attachment's playing a role. So what happens is now the divorce, you're splitting up. So the attachment to be, first of all, the most primordial attachment to be approved of is suddenly not getting what it wants. So that's intense pain. And then also attachment just not getting what he wants, which is everybody's attachment, then anger is the response to that. So from his point of view, he's feeling this intense pain of his own thwarted needs not being satisfied. So that's his problem. But you right now have got to deal with your stuff. So you've got to try and keep out of the way of his anger. Try not to use it against yourself. Try to let him have it and keep yourself steady. And then you've got to spend time working on your mind and looking at yourself, because you understand, I mean, you're two very separate people, and now it's really coming. So you've got to be so careful not to use his pain and his resentment and his hurt against yourself. That's my main point to you right now. Do you understand?
Yeah, no, I agree, and I'm trying to do that, and again, like the other gentleman was talking about, it's really brought me back to the Buddhism I had studied in the past. So
Yes.
I'm doing a lot of work, and it does help me a lot. But then I see him struggle, and then it comes back to me, this anger, and sometimes I just don't know what to do with it, and it makes me anxious.
So okay, this is a good point. When you say don't know what to do with it, do you mean at that second or afterwards? Because what do you mean precisely by that? I don't know what to do with it. What do you mean?
So when I get attacked by, the emails and the threats and that sort of thing,
Oh, I see. Okay. When an event happens, you mean when the words come out the mouth or through the email? You mean like that? Well, then that's
yeah.
That's difficult, isn't it? So then so then at least you're not there in front of him. At least you can listen to it and try and, do you try to look into the words? Because one of the things, if you're brave enough, is when anybody accuses us of something, but it's painful if it comes over as anger. But if you're brave enough, you've got the space, check out exactly what he says. And if you think it's true, then you try to accept the truth of it. And if it's not, then you try to leave it. All you can do is that. And you've got the space because it's via an email. I mean, you've got to accept that he's probably because you probably initiated the divorce, right?
Well, I did, but it was based on him leaving. So
it was
really,
based on what?
I'm sorry?
It was based on what, sweetheart? What did you say?
He left. So he did terrible things or painful things. And then I asked for the divorce at that point.
I see.
But
So then so then it wasn't just you then. So that's interesting. Yeah, okay. That's interesting. Sweetheart, all you can do is try to just protect yourself, not go into too much detail into his mind. Try not to think, you can't afford to think about him right now too much. You've got to really keep your own ground, watch yourself, let him say what he has to say, let him say it. You can't stop him, but don't have to wear it. Just because he says it doesn't mean it's true. So try not to use it against yourself is the main thing I'm saying. And try not to be afraid of it. This is really important.
And maybe just not engaging. I sometimes
Oh my
want to
God, try
explain
not
myself.
to, no, as much as possible, do not engage. It can make him probably even more angry because when you're angry, you want to fight, but you can't afford to do that. When a person's very angry, there's nothing much you can do. So you just got to not be passive aggressive, but try to be steady, try to allow him to have his own anger, his own pain. He's got to deal with that himself, whether he does or not, it's another discussion. And you've got to just try to keep your ground, try not to believe every word he says, but if there's some truth there, own responsibility for your mistakes and learn from it. But you don't have to try and make it better. And you don't feel guilty, none of those things. Keep yourself steady and you don't have to engage. Absolutely not. Try to do it all through other people. Don't try not to. You understand? I mean, why are you having mediation? You're getting the divorce already. Why is there mediation? What's that purpose of that?
Well, when you have to separate everything, well, we can't speak. He refuses to speak to me. So we need people to help go through it.
Okay, I see.
Yeah.
So that it's working. The mediation's helping you sort things out, just all the logistics of it. It's working.
At moments, but I think there's just a lot of emotion, so it's
That's
difficult.
right.
And
Exactly.
I think
Are you being
those
emotional
people
as well, shouting back at him in when you're in mediation? No.
Say that again.
Are you shouting and yelling back at him?
No, I'm not shouting and yelling. I just no, I haven't. They've had to calm him.
Yeah. You trying to say it again? What are you trying to do? Say it again.
Well, we just try to, we're trying to negotiate these different things, but everything is so emotional. So he gets really upset and they try to calm him down
I see. So they try to cut the mediators, you mean?
Yes. So we
they
need them there.
Yeah, but they should just let him. I mean, if you've got mediators there, you can feel a bit safe. But they shouldn't just try to calm him. I mean, maybe he's got to shout and yell. Let him shout and yell. He's got to try and express himself. But you just got to protect yourself from it. That's all. And not believe every word he says. Have enough courage to know that not every word he says is necessarily true. I mean, your own attachment, you see, our own attachment, we all want to have things to be lovely. So when he shouts and yell, your attachment's not getting what it wants. Are you seeing my point?
Yeah, very much.
You've got to see that part of yourself and try and stay steady and kind of like let him shout. Try not, I mean, it's easy to say it, but try not to be too personal about it. No, it's his pain and his yelling and let him do it and try and just keep yourself steady and try to navigate the storm by taking care of yourself and don't try to respond to everything. You can't make it better. You can't make it go away, but protect yourself. It's important.
Yeah, it's just sometimes, the fear that rises because you just don't know what's going to happen. And
I know,
in these situations.
No, I know that must be difficult. So try and just keep steady. And have you got good friends supporting you?
I do. I'm very lucky.
That's important. Well, then just protect yourself. Try not to exaggerate the harm, try and just let him have it and hope he sorts himself out. But that's not your business now.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate the advice.
Good, Sasha. Hello, Samuel.
Hello. I just want to say thank you.
Good.
In 2006, you were in Mexico, in Guadalajara, and you
Oh,
did
yeah.
refuge vows,
Yes.
refuge taking. So,
Yes.
and at that moment, you said, normally when you do this, not intoxicate the body, everybody understands that you can have one drink, one cigarette or something. But if you do today, it's zero. So I did in 2006, and I still maintain it. And I think it saved my life in many ways. Not drinking alcohol and
Yeah.
Avoiding this almost 18 years of
Yes.
doing very stupid things.
Yes.
So I just want to tell you that I still keep it, and I
Well
I
done.
want
Good
to say
on
thank
you.
you.
I'm so impressed, Samuel. Well done. That's 20 years nearly.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, amazing. Well done, Samuel. That's brilliant. I rejoice, okay?
Thank you.
Good. Thank you so much, Samuel. Well, we all rejoice for you. On a happy note, I think we finish there. Unless there's someone else. I think we can see we've all got the same variation of the same problem. Our cars burst into flames, husbands get mad at us, boyfriends leave us, you know. Life is too much. So it's attachment. So just all we've got to do is learn about the event, and then look back inside at the mirror, because our mind is, the way Lama Yeshe puts it, is like a mirror, and whatever is out there is reflected in our mirror. So if your mirror is full of attachment, full of anger, full of fear, then that will impact, that will reflect, the event will reflect through that. So keep remembering the mirror of our mind and observe what's in there. So, for example, just now, for example, the fear of the Sasha's point. She sees the angry ex-husband and it causes her to have fear. So naturally she's interpreting it in a certain way. So that's where she's got to look at her mind, be sensible, protect herself, but try not to buy into that and try not to exaggerate. Because one of the things that delusions do, they exaggerate. It sounds very surprising, but they exaggerate. So we do our best, take care of ourselves, work on our mind, keep out of the way of problems if we can, protect ourselves, and go one step at a time, okay? And know we're a work in progress. And like I said to Brian at the beginning, have constantly, when you're having these dramas, remember the good things. Remember you're doing a good job. How amazing. I'm doing my best. I'm getting through this. I'm doing okay. I'm seeing my mind. Try to rejoice in the good things. If we only go on about the bad things, it'll exhaust us. It's so important to get a balanced picture of ourselves, okay? Love ourselves, as I think it was Brad said. Okay, darling people. Jangchub Semchog Rinpoche, Ma Kie Panam Kie Guchig, Kie Panyampa Me Payang Gong Ne Gong Du Pawashog. And never give up, never give up, and never give up, everybody. Thank you so much. I'm happy to see you all again, precious ones. And you, Judith Bailey, happy to see you, darling. And Mary, and everybody, and Barbara, and Joey. All of you, thank you, people. All of you, thank you. All of you, thank you. Much love, everyone. Devna, thank you, sweetheart. You too. And Shmita, happy to see
Thank
you
you so
all.
much.